The envelope felt like a weapon in my hands. Thick, certified, wedged between grocery coupons and bills, like it belonged there, but it didn't. Nothing that heavy ever came with the junk mail. My 34th birthday. Not exactly a milestone. Worth celebrating, but still my day. The return address made my stomach drop. My parents. For one foolish second, I thought maybe they'd remembered. Maybe this time would be different. I carried it inside like it might explode, set it on my kitchen counter next to flowers from my assistant, the only person who'd acknowledged my birthday. My hands shook as I tore it open. No card. No handwriting. Just cold printed words that might as well have been a death certificate. After careful consideration, we have updated our estate plans. All remaining assets will be left to Lily Monroe and her children. Given your current circumstances, we trust you understand. It's 3 sentences. No happy birthday, no love. It's just one word at the bottom that made my blood freeze. Regards, not even mom and dad. It's just regards, like I was a business associate. They were politely dismissing. I stared at those words until they blurred. My coffee went cold. Traffic hummed outside. Construction crews hammered away. Life kept moving. But I couldn't hear any of it. This wasn't grief tearing through me. This wasn't even anger. This was confirmation. What I'd suspected for years was finally brutally true. I wasn't family anymore. At least, not the kind that mattered. But what destroyed me wasn't the disinheritance. It was the timing. They'd sent this on my birthday. Not a day before, not a week later. The exact day they once called the best day of our lives. Tay? They've forgotten that part. Tay? Or did they remember perfectly and send it anyway? I wasn't always the forgotten child. Once upon a time, I was the capable one. The little helper who carried diaper bags and reminded Dad to turn off the stove. By 10, I could cook 3 full meals. By 12, I was walking Lily to preschool, braiding her hair when Mom was too busy for those things. Lily was the golden baby, all soft curls and softer. Treatment. When she cried, the world stopped spinning. When I cried, I was being dramatic. School events told the whole story. Mom would pose with Lily front and center, both of them glowing. I'd stand off to the side holding someone's purse, invisible even in family photos. Even our birthdays screamed. Favoritism? Lily got themed parties, unicorns, dolphins, a rented pony, one magical year. I got grocery store cake, usually 2 days late. Like an afterthought, they'd suddenly remembered. I used to torture myself wondering what I'd done wrong. Why wasn't I lovable like her? But Grandma Eloise never made me wonder. She lived 3 blocks away in a tiny blue house with a cracked porch swing and a cookie jar that never emptied. She didn't have much money, but what she had, she shared without drama or conditions. She taught me to balance a checkbook before high school, fix leaky faucets, and breathe when the world felt too heavy. When cancer came for her, slow, vicious lung cancer, I was 16. Mom couldn't handle hospitals. Dad worked late. So I went every single day. I changed her sheets, memorized her medication schedule, sat through chemo sessions holding her hand while she threw up. Lily visited exactly once, took a selfie for Instagram, and left early complaining about the depressing vibes. But when Grandma died, I was the one who found her will tucked inside a worn copy of Little Women. She'd left me everything, her house, her car, her small savings account. And a note that made me sob in that empty bedroom. You were the one who stayed. Not because you had to, but because you saw me. It wasn't about the money. It was about being chosen. Finally, someone had chosen me out loud, on paper, where it couldn't be taken back. At the funeral, people whispered. Mom looked like she'd swallowed poison. Lily wore white lace and dramatic eyeliner, barely making eye contact with anyone. A week later, Lily cornered me with that practiced hair flip she'd learned from Mom. I know you've got the house, she said, voice dripping fake sweetness. But rent's insane right now. Could I crash for a bit? She moved in that weekend, stayed 6 months, never paid a dime, used my shampoo, ate my food, borrowed my car without asking. When she finally left, there was no thank you. She just vanished like smoke. 3 years later, I heard through mutual friends what she'd been telling people. That I'd taken advantage of a dying woman. That I'd manipulated Grandma for property. That it was weird how I'd inherited everything. I never confronted her, never defended myself. Because by then I understood something colder than silence. They weren't forgetting me. They were rewriting me, but sometimes late at night. I wondered, did Lily remember those nights I made her soup when she had the flu? Did she remember who held her through thunderstorms when Mom left the windows open? Or had those memories been erased too? After Lily moved out, I started locking doors, not just the front one, but the invisible ones around my heart. No more family group chats. No more "can you just look over this lease?" or "it's just until payday." I moved to a 1-bedroom condo near the university where I taught night classes. Sociology, mostly courses people took because they had to, not because they cared, but I cared. The patterns fascinated me. The systems, the ways people repeat cycles they swore they'd escape. I saved every penny. Took consulting gigs nobody wanted. Holiday shifts, curriculum audits, late-night Zoom calls with irritated donors. Quiet work, but it paid. In 4 years, I'd saved enough to start something that felt like mine. Third Circle Education. We offered life skills workshops for teenage girls aging out of foster care. How to read a lease without getting scammed. How to spot predatory loans. How to write resumes without lying. These girls came in guarded, suspicious. They left taller somehow. When people asked what inspired the program, I never mentioned my family. I always thought of Grandma Eloise and how the people who need help most often learn to ask for it least. Then came the article that changed everything. A local reporter, quiet, thoughtful, sat through one of our workshops. She wrote a piece calling me a quiet engine of change. The headline got shared more than I expected. Old classmates saw it, former professors, even my parents. 2 weeks later, I noticed I'd been completely erased from Lily's Instagram. Not blocked, erased. Family wedding photos cropped. Childhood pictures reposted with new captions. Just me and my guardian. Angels, she wrote, under a photo where I used to stand between her and Mom. At first I thought it was a glitch. Then I saw the photo for my college graduation, the one I'd framed for Dad years ago. In Lily's kitchen tour video, I could see it hanging in the background. Same frame I'd bought. But someone had physically cut me out of the picture. Scissors, tape, new frame. Like I'd never existed. I didn't cry, but I stared at that empty space longer than I should have. When they rewrote history, did they ever wonder who'd paid for the first chapter? The knock came on a Tuesday. 3 firm reps, then silence. I wasn't expecting anyone. Most people called first. When I opened the door, he stood there like an intervention team. Mom, Lily, and a man I'd never seen. Mid-40s, expensive coat, wedding ring. Lily's new husband, I'd learn later. They looked rehearsed. Hair perfect, clothes coordinated, smiles forced. "Rachel," Mom said, her voice artificially warm. "As a family, we thought it was time." Time for what? They didn't ask permission to enter. Brushed past me like they still owned the right. I watched them settle into my living room. Lily curled into my couch corner like she used to in high school, except now in designer heels and full makeup, a woman playing a girl she barely remembered being. Mom started with compliments. How proud she was, how she'd always known I'd do something meaningful. How she'd shown my article to people at church. Then came the real reason for their visit. Lily and her husband had started a business, real estate marketing. It has promise. Mom said, but they need startup capital. The bank wouldn't approve their full loan without a cosigner, someone reputable, someone with a proven track record of stability. They wanted me to back them financially, just on paper, just for a year, maybe less. I know things were tense for a while, Mom added, eyes wide with practiced innocence. But family finds its way back, right? Lily didn't speak. She stared at her hands the way she used to before telling a lie. I didn't say yes, didn't say no. I just stood there watching them sit on furniture I'd bought. In a home I'd built, asking for trust they'd never earned with voices that had once called me ungrateful. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, set it on the coffee table, waited. Lily finally looked up. I just thought you'd understand, she whispered. Her voice cracked, but her mascara didn't smudge. I thought about listing every time she hadn't understood me, every erasure, every rewrite. Instead, I watched the water and waited for it to go still. They didn't stay long, didn't finish their pitch, didn't touch the water. The door clicked shut with the kind of quiet that feels heavier than a slam. I stood in the silence they'd left behind, wondering if they'd really thought I wouldn't remember the envelope. The second envelope wasn't certified. It was hand-delivered, thicker, colder. A civil complaint with my name as defendant. My own family was suing me. The charge, unjust enrichment. They claimed I'd used undue influence to steal Grandma's inheritance. That I'd manipulated her, isolated her, cut them out. That Lily had been the true heir, but I'd intervened with lies and manipulation. It read like fiction, where I was the villain and Lily the grieving granddaughter, too kind to speak up until now. I sat with those papers for hours. Didn't call anyone, didn't cry. Instead, I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out the folder I'd kept for 15 years. Medical records, handwritten notes, photos of me and Grandma in her garden at chemo sessions, opening Christmas cards I'd signed when her hands shook too much to hold a pen, and the will notarized, filed, stamped by the county court the day she died. I didn't need to defend myself. But I would. My lawyer was Alina Ruiz, a former student of mine, brilliant and unshakable. She'd written her dissertation on power dynamics in inheritance disputes. When I showed her the complaint, she didn't even blink. We've seen this before, she said calmly. But they made a critical mistake. I raised an eyebrow. Alina smiled like a shark. They submitted forged evidence. Lily had fabricated emails, supposedly, from Grandma, notes that didn't match her handwriting. Even a draft of a revised will dated 2 weeks after Grandma's death. They hadn't bothered checking hospice logs. Grandma had been unconscious by then. We didn't counterattack, just submitted proof, point by methodical point. When deposition day arrived, Lily showed up in pearls and a black blazer, like she was attending brunch instead of committing perjury. Mom sat beside her, pale but composed. I barely spoke. Alina did the talking, calm, methodical. With the precision of someone who'd waited her whole career for a case this clear-cut. Lily stumbled when asked about timelines, changed her story. Then changed it again. By noon, her lawyer requested a break. By 2 p.m., they were begging to settle. Alina declined. She wanted this on the record 2 weeks later. The judge dismissed their case with prejudice, calling it a malicious and frivolous attempt to distort documented history. In legal terms, it was victory. In family terms, there's no word for what it was. Mom never called. Dad didn't either, but someone forwarded me a screenshot of Lily's Instagram story. A close-up of her tear-streaked face with a caption, "Some people will do anything for money, even lie about their own blood." No names mentioned, but everyone knew. I turned off my phone for 3 days. When I turned it back on, there was one voicemail from Lily. Her voice was tight, controlled. "I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. Mom won't speak to me. Our investors pulled out. We had to close the office. I needed you." Then silence. Not an apology, not a request. Just accusation wrapped in victimhood. I needed you, as if needing someone once gave you the right to hurt them forever. I didn't delete the voicemail, but I never listened to it again. The second time they came crawling back, they didn't knock. They called my father, of all people. After nearly 7 years of silence, His voice was clipped but strained. "Things got out of hand," he said. "Your sister regrets a lot." "So do we. The lawsuit was ... unfortunate, but we're family, and families survive worse." I waited. Let the silence do the sorting. Finally, he cleared his throat. "We'd like to invite you to a gathering. Your cousin Grant is getting married. Big celebration. Would mean something if you showed up." I almost laughed, not from cruelty, just absurdity. They wanted me there not for reconciliation, but for optics, because now my name meant something. Third Circle had expanded to 3 states. We'd partnered with a National Women's Leadership Fund. My face had been on magazine covers. They didn't want me. They wanted her, the version of me that made them look good by proximity. I declined politely but firmly. A week later, Aunt Mara called. She'd always been kind in a distant, teacup-rattling way. Said she understood why I was hurt. Said what Lily did was inexcusable. Then, just as softly, "But maybe it's time to let it go, sweetheart. People are watching. Weddings are about joy. Don't bring the past into it. Don't bring the past into it," as if the past was a purse I could choose not to carry. As if they hadn't already spilled it across the room and walked away. I didn't respond, didn't go, didn't post. That Saturday, when wedding photos flooded social media, sunlight, champagne, rented gardens, I stayed home, lit a candle, read one of Grandma's old paperbacks. When the doorbell rang just after dusk, I looked through the Lily stood there alone. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red and hollow. She didn't say anything, just waited. I turned off the porch light and let the darkness answer for me. Lily never tried a third time. After that night, she didn't text, didn't call, didn't email some long apology begging for another chance. She disappeared into her world of curated posts and morning yoga classes. I stayed in mine. Not from bitterness, from clarity. I no longer needed to be seen by them. I only needed to stop being rewritten. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was exact. It filled only the space they used to occupy, no more, no less. When people asked old friends, former neighbors who never quite knew what happened, I kept it simple. They chose a version of me that was easier to delete. Sometimes they'd press, "What do you mean? I was there." I'd say, "They just didn't want to see me." That always ended the conversation. No one had a reply for that because truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need proof or parade. It just needs to be said once, clearly. I didn't write them off dramatically, didn't burn photos or mail back old cards. I let it all stay where it was, in drawers, in old inboxes, in the quiet part of the house I no longer opened. Some memories don't need closure, just boundaries. Last spring, I repainted the hallway soft, gray, clean.com. I took down all. The photos, not in anger, just necessity. Dust had settled behind the frames. Time had moved ahead of them. One I almost kept, a candid shot of Grandma Eloise and me on her porch swing, mismatched mugs of tea in our hands. No poses, no editing, just presence. But when I lifted the frame, I found something tucked behind it. A second photo folded and torn at the edges. My college graduation, the full version. Me in the center, arms around Lily and Mom before they cut me out. Someone had hidden it there. Maybe me, maybe not. I slid the torn photo from behind the glass. Didn't put it back. Didn't throw it away. I left the frame empty and hung it back in place. Not to mourn what was missing, but to remind myself what's gone doesn't need to be filled. It just needs to be named once. Quietly, and then left alone. If they erased your face from their picture, would you hang the empty frame back up?